We're glad to see everyone out this morning on such a cold morning. My name is Chad King. I'm the Director of Sustainability here at the University of Denver. And as a representative of the University of Denver, I welcome you to campus. We're always excited to host community gatherings here, and we're extra appreciative to host something so important that includes our area and our transportation around campus. Today, wearing a couple hats as a member of the Executive Committee of the Board of Directors for Transportation Solutions. I also welcome you to the Road Ahead Summit, where we'll spend some time focused on the theme of connecting stations with their communities. And this year's theme really grew out of our DRCOG funded station area plan that we conducted last year. And if you weren't familiar with that process, led by the City and County of Denver and Transportation Solutions, OV Consulting coordinated a tremendous neighborhood effort in looking at our two station areas here, the University of Denver station and the Colorado Center station. They developed a great plan for connecting the two stations and connecting them to our neighborhoods. And that plan is now publicly accessible up on the City and County website, so I encourage you to check it out there. It really lays out an exciting vision for both stations and for their connections moving on into the future. On a personal note, as we've looked at those efforts here on campus, I want to thank Stuart Anderson and Transportation Solutions for their work as a great partner with DU as we've tried to approach creative solutions to last mile connections to our station. And this year we're excited to launch a couple of pilot projects looking at expanding car share on campus, utilizing Chariot as a microtransit shuttle around campus, and also kicking off a dockless bike share pilot in this area. As a bit of administration as we get going, there is an agenda for the day at each table. Other logistics, if you're looking for restrooms this morning, out that door and sort of straight across the lobby area on this floor, there are restrooms. We'd like to thank OFO for being our title sponsor, and if you didn't see their yellow bikes out front, go get a ride after we're done here, after it warms up a little bit. And we're glad again for DU for providing some of the hosting here on campus. I'd like to acknowledge a few elected officials who are here. I believe we have Bob Roth, the DRCOG chairman here, Denver Council members Cashman from District 6 and Black from District 4, Kate Williams, our RTD District A representative, Doug Tisdale, our RTD chairman, Paul Solano, RTD District K. We're so glad to have all of you here this morning. As we get going this morning, I'd also like to introduce Kendra Black from District 4, City of Denver Council member, who will be introducing our next speaker.
Thank you, Chad, and welcome everyone. I had some really great comments I typed up, and my printer was offline this morning, so I brought my computer, and I don't know. I'm just gonna wing it. Oh no, there it is. Okay. So on behalf of the City and County of Denver, welcome to the Road Ahead. We're actually in Paul Cashman's district. Hello, Councilman Cashman. My district borders Paul Cashman's district and DU, and DU is an important part of our Southeast Denver community and part of my neighborhood. I have a tiny connection to DU, which I've already told some of you, but my dad, who was in World War II, completed his degree here under the GI Bill in the 1940s, and he, as a very young man, ran the business school here. DU was a very different place back then, and my very young mother, who was a teenager, worked as a secretary here at DU. So long history with DU. DU is such an important part of our community. Thank you for hosting this and for all the things you do in our community. I'd like to acknowledge the visionary George Thorne, who, without his vision and his leadership, we wouldn't have Transportation Solutions, so thank you, George, and the amazing Stuart Anderson, wherever you are a great leader. Robbie Long, and everyone on the Board of Transportation Solutions, and all of you who care so much about mobility in Denver. I have a few things to say. One, there has been a huge shift in thinking among people in Denver in the last few years. Whereas before, all people cared about was their own commute and traffic. There are still people who care about that. But there's a lot more people now who actually are thinking about mobility. And I credit all of you here for getting that shift. We have a long way to go, but we're getting somewhere. My favorite bumper sticker that Tate pointed out to me says, "You're not in traffic, you are traffic." I told that to my 24-year-old son, and he was like, huh? Very funny, but true. Anyway, so thank you for that. 3 things I'm excited about. Tad mentioned the planning efforts around the DU and Colorado stations last year. Very successful, resulted in funding from the City and County of Denver. We need more funding to complete them, but they're very important. But importantly, it also elevated those stations among city planners. And I'm the first to say that the city doesn't pay enough attention to these outlying districts like District 4, so I'm really happy we're getting attention. Also, I'm very excited about partnering with the Denver South Transportation Management Association. I'm on that board too. That district goes from Bellevue, or not Bellevue, I-225 south all the way to Lincoln in Douglas County. So the very northern part of the Denver Tech Center, which is my district, is in that TMA. And we're talking about doing some joint planning with them around Yale, Southmore, and the Bellevue stations, increasing connectivity, accessibility, and ridership. Really excited about that. And lastly, really excited about dockless bikes. Thank you, OFO, for sponsoring this. OFO bikes are in Lone Tree, which is part of this Denver South District I was just talking about. And there's a lot of people who do a reverse commute. You know, the cool kids live in the urban core, but they probably work in the tech center, and they take the light rail. But when they get to all of the businesses along the I-25 corridor, there's no docked bikes because they're not feasible down there. And it's not a great area for transit. It's not very dense, but dockless bikes could be the solution down there, and I'm really excited to talk more about that. It'll really get people out of their cars and off I-25 and riding their bikes to work. So thank you, OFO, and thank you all for being here. And up next is the amazing Susan Daggett, Director of the Rocky Mountain Land Institute here at the University of Denver, and also the smartest person at the University of Denver.
I'm not even going to comment on that, but my children would not agree. So my name's Susan Daggett. I run the Rocky Mountain Land Use Institute right across the green here at DU, and I am thrilled to be here and to welcome Transportation Solutions to our campus, and really want to echo Kendra's comments and Chad's comments in thanking Transportation Solutions, and in particular Stuart Anderson and the leadership, the longtime leadership of this organization, and George Thorne and Bill James and now Chris Nevitt and the entire board for really elevating the conversation about mobility in this community. Transportation Solutions has been a critically important partner for DU as we go through a master planning process, and under the leadership of our new chancellor, really try to think about how to integrate our university and the campus of our university much more deeply into the surrounding community and into Denver. And as we do that, the mobility options are critical for creating vibrant, walkable spaces, for bringing people onto campus, for bringing people off the campus. And Transportation Solutions has been absolutely at the core of a lot of those conversations about how to do that. They have done a magnificent job of creating a new station area plan, which was mentioned before, around the University Station and the Colorado Station. And those plans are remarkable in many ways, but from our perspective here at DU, one of the wonderful things is that they integrated beautifully with the master planning process and really worked closely with DU to try to figure out how to make the plan for activating the station and for thinking about the land uses around the station as such an important way of getting our students onto the transit system and other people from the transit system back into the campus. So a hallmark of Transportation Solutions work, I think, is that it is creative and out of the box and leading edge while being really practical. What will work? How can we do this, and how do we implement this? And an example, I think that that station area plan had a number of recommendations in it, and as Kendra mentioned, several of those recommendations are in the process of being implemented, whether it's the new bike lane that is being funded through the GEO bond down Bucktail to connect the stations, or whether it's the new yellow bikes right outside of the door that you walked in this morning. Those are all elements of what Transportation Solutions recommended to the city and to DU. And as our master planning process continues to evolve here on the campus, that work of Transportation Solutions is really front and center in thinking about that. So thank you so much to Transportation Solutions and to all of you here for helping to support this really important work. If we are going to build a vibrant, pedestrian-oriented community that works, that gets people around, we really have to be thankful for and support this kind of work. So with that, I would love to welcome and to thank Patrick Quintana, our lead sponsor for this event, the head of the regional managing director of OFO, who is going to transform our campus.
Let me start by saying I'm not the personal sponsor. OFO is sponsoring the event, and I won't be or I guess I'll be the second person to encourage you to ride the yellow bikes outside. It's only 17 degrees. I spent a couple years in Chicago, and the 17 degrees in Chicago is much different from 17 degrees here, so this is basically biking weather. So I'd encourage you all to get outside and go check them out. Firstly, quick thanks to the Transportation Solutions Foundation and to DU to making today possible, providing the resources and the space to help us get together and have these important conversations. So, like she said, my name is Patrick Quintana. I'm the GM for OFO here in the Denver area. We are really excited to be part of the event today. We think that this event is what it represents is very core to what OFO represents in its mission, mobility and connectivity of our communities. For those of you who don't know much about OFO, we're obviously everywhere around here today, but I'll share a little bit about us right now, but I encourage you to go to the back, go see our table, ask some questions, ask about what we're all about. We were founded in 2014. We were the first and we're the largest station-free bike sharing solution in the world. What comes with that, 250 cities, over 200 campuses that we're on, 200 million global users, over 10 million bikes, all contributing to over 30 million transactions or rides on a daily basis. So we do this, we're good at it, we're passionate about it. And that kind of begs the question, how does Denver fit into that equation? Which is good because that's my job and what I'm focused on. We do have an operation out in Aurora and in some parts of South Denver. Happy to answer some questions about our operations there and our vision for Denver as well. But as a Denver native, I can confidently say that what OFO is doing has a lot of societal and community benefits that I know are important to the region. Everything from, we're providing a affordable, convenient, environmentally friendly way to get around. It's an alternative form of transportation that is really transforming some of that first and last mile challenge that we're all working to solve. That all contributes to reduced traffic congestion, reduced carbon emissions, reduced single occupancy vehicles, energy savings, promoting a more healthy lifestyle, all things that we can all get behind here. Another notable benefit to what we do is that OFO's platform, OFO's platform crosses socioeconomic and neighborhood lines. And as I say that, you may have certain neighborhoods in the Denver area that come to your mind, and I certainly have some that come to mind. And the traditional dock-based bike sharing systems. You find those in certain neighborhoods that have high rent, high density, and it doesn't necessarily purposefully neglect certain neighborhoods, but there's certain neighborhoods that just don't get the kind of attention that they deserve, and they don't have the kind of mobility solutions that they should. And so that's something that is part of my personal philosophy. It's part of OFO's mission to make sure that we can get into those neighborhoods, serve those communities, and bring these benefits to those areas as well. So OFO bikes can, it takes $1 to ride for an hour. You can park it anywhere that you can legally park a bike, which some people have a fun interpretation of. But it is really meant to mobilize communities and really activate them. So we're pretty excited about that. Next generation bike sharing is supposed to bring you from door to door, and so that's what we really believe in. And so if you have any questions about that, please come up to me. Please come up to the table. Don't be shy. Happy to answer any questions you might have. And looking forward to connecting with everyone today. Thank you very much. Nick, Chad, are you up? You? All right.
Thank you once again to OFO for your sponsorship. My name is Chris Nevitt, and I'm the current chair of Transportation Solutions. I was just elected chair. I have very, very large shoes to fill after Bill James and George Thorne. And so what does the chair of Transportation Solutions do? The board game Monopoly, and there's that card on Community Chest. You have been elected chairman of the board. Pay every player $50. So my sole job here is to give away awards. That's what I'm here for. Actually, if Susan Daggett and Councilwoman Black could help me as chair, I'm not even capable of doing this by myself. So we have some great awards to give away before we get to the main event. Some great work has been done over the last year, and some people really need to be acknowledged. So the first award is the Community Leadership Award. This goes to a friend and colleague of mine at the City and County of Denver, but his role in the great DU Colorado Center station area planning and mobility plan was fantastic, way above and beyond the call of duty, not just being a good interface between the city and the planning process, but also sort of jumping in and taking hold of the community participation part in a way that nobody expected, nobody asked for, but made a huge difference in how well that plan turned out. And so that is Eugene Howard. Eugene, come on up here. And get this valuable prize.
All right, thank you. Well, gosh, this is really exciting. When I was asked to participate in this project and on this project team, I'd never had any idea that it would lead to this, but on behalf of the city, on behalf of the project team, the 2 council offices, Transportation Solutions, and the foundation, and of course DU, I gratefully and humbly accept this award. So for those of you who have children out there, make sure that they get involved in civics. I don't think I would be standing here if I hadn't gone through those civics classes in high school, which is where I learned the importance of getting involved in community. And I think once you get involved in community, you see the needs that exist around you, and hopefully you become motivated to jump in and do something. So, this I get to do for my day job, but I also try to be involved in community as much as I can in my personal life. So, get out there, get involved, and you too can affect change. So, thank you.
Will you do this
How am I
together?
doing? Make sure my stomach's tucked in. Thank you.
Thank you. So the second award, the Transportation Solutions Champion Award, it's kind of funny. The name of the organization is Transportation Solutions, but it's also a perfect encapsulation of our mission. So the Transportation Solutions Champion Award, we're giving a couple of those out, goes to OV Consulting, who did such an incredible job on the two-station mobility plan. I mean, not only was it the usual metrics of on time and under budget, but it turned out so well. It's now become a nationally recognized model. They're winning awards, and it's being looked at by other places for this is how you do a mobility plan. So Beth Vogelsang, Chris Vogelsang, amazing coincidence, Chris Vogelsang, and Max Lubarski. Where's Max? So come on up here and get this valuable award.
Okay. All right. I'm only going to say a couple things, but I definitely, this is such a nice surprise and such a lovely gift. And I want to thank the rest of our office. So Sherry Moore and Fernando Abud are also employees who worked on this. And then the rest of the team. So if you guys want to stand up, Tim Baldwin, Mark Lease, and Arlene Tanawaki were a big part of this effort. So that's all important. And of course, as I think you've kind of gathered, it was a very much a partnership with everyone, DU, Mile High Development, Lincoln Partners, RTD was at the table. Everyone was at the table, including the neighborhoods, and of course, Councilman Cashman and Councilwoman Black. So we just had a great time, and I think that's what came through. So thank you very much.
I also want to say that turning plans into reality is what we do, and we're so excited that one of these projects is part of the GeoBond. And I really want to thank the neighborhood. Rosemary and Jeannie were really super at being part of our stakeholder group, and everybody that participated in all the political support, because it wouldn't happen without that. So thank you.
Thank you, guys. The next Transportation Solutions Champion Award goes to one of our employer partners, M2 Lending Solutions in Colorado Center, and they're a new participant, and they stepped up in a big way, particularly in the regional Go-Tober campaign. So that is Christy Gates, whom I have not met, so I can't pick Christy Gates out of the crowd. Can someone pretend to be Christy Gates and come here? I will know no different. Okay, well, they were awesome, so a round of applause for M2 Lending. And then the third Transportation Solutions Champion Award, here we are in DU. DU played a big role in the two-station mobility plan. They're a great partner of ours. They're launching the OFO dockless bike share program, and quite sensibly, our champion, this award goes to James Rosner, Associate Vice Chancellor for the university, and he's relatively new on the job, but totally jumped in with both feet, embraced the enterprise that we're engaged in. He's a real innovative thinker, a lot of innovations that he's implementing quickly, one of them being the dockless bike share, which you see, but in just a few months, this summer, they're also piloting the Chariot on-demand shuttle system. So you'll see that here at DU as well. So for the city and the region, DU is really an incubator of new ideas and new ways of doing transportation, and James Rosner is the point of that spear. So Mr. Rosner, come on up here and get this valuable award.
As Chris said, very recently new to DU. I arrived in November of 2016 to actually head facilities management. And at that time, I took 2 steps in the door, and my boss, Vice Chancellor Craig Woody, said, "Guess what? We're going to transfer parking and transportation under you." And I said, "Okay, I'm a mechanical engineer. I'm used to this." But really, from day one, was very impressed with a lot of the momentum and effort that had been done before me from many folks in the room. Came in and had a finished transportation master plan for the campus that fed right into a campus master plan. Working with Chad in the sustainability area, working with the late Fred Cheever on the sustainability efforts that he had. Boy, would he be excited about some of the items that we're doing here. So I just wanted to mention that. And it's been a pleasure working with everyone. I joked around with folks that I feel like I'm a blister because I show up after all the hard work's been done. And so really it's just been saying yes, and how can we move forward on initiatives that again, momentum has been built and a lot of hard work has already been done. So I really appreciate this and really excited to see where mobility can go. And we did change actually the department from parking and transportation to parking and mobility services. And so we're really trying to change a mindset and a paradigm on campus that's been very driver-centric, parking-centric to that last mile, first mile solution. So it's been an exciting first year, and we're really excited to see where these pilots go. We keep reminding leadership and other community members that part of taking that first step with a pilot is just trying it, and we don't have all the answers before we start, but let's start and work together to figure out those solutions. So very exciting time, great to be a part of such a great community and be a part of these organizations, so thank you.
Oh, it is? Well, okay. This last award gives me particular pleasure. This is the Founding Member Award, and it goes to George Thorne. George has been, I don't know how you put it. I mean, he was into all of this stuff way before it was cool. He founded Transportation Solutions along with Bill James and others in the previous millennium, and has led the organization at various times and has always been a guiding force. He's certainly been a mentor to me. I don't expect him to sort of receive this award and then go away. We don't want him to go away, but he certainly deserves some kind of small token of our recognition and appreciation for all that he's done. He's been a real leader in transportation demand management and helping drive the agenda of transportation demand management forward, both in terms of transportation solutions, but in the larger context of the city. So, George, come on up here.
Well, thank you, Chris, and thank you all for being here. It's great to look around the room and see so many old friends, folks from RTD now, people like Doug Tisdale, the new chair. Doug, congratulations and best of luck in that role. But when back in the beginning, this was actually kind of on my part a selfish endeavor to help me solve a big problem down at Colorado Center, which was trying to convince the city that we could put all those people on that confined, constrained, what they thought, isolated site, and then get them all off at the PM rush and back in at the AM rush, and what did that all mean? And I couldn't find anybody around here who thought that could be done, so I stumbled out to the West Coast in a place called Pleasanton, California, that was the center of transportation management, organizations at the time. They called them TMOs, now TMAs, and the whole concept of transportation demand management. Kind of did my little internship out there for a couple of days and came back and kept the Denver City Council, Kendra before yours, and Paul's time on there up till about 2 in the morning talking about it, and found out there are a lot of people that are interested in this whole transportation thing. And that was in 1992. And a couple years later, with the help of Bill and others and lots of people in this room, Bill Elfenbein, who later became the chair of the RTD board, and all kinds of folks from the city and county of Denver, from Glendale, Dr. Cog. I mean, any of these people I'm mentioning, we really couldn't have built this organization, and much more importantly, kept it going, make it really sustainable without partners like that. And here we are at DU, one of our greatest partners and supporters, and to have people like Susan and Chad and now James involved in helping this thing along. So those, particularly the younger folks, which is basically everybody in the room to me, but think about the great comments that you made about partnership and civic involvement. I mean, it sounds a lot of times, particularly I think in a classroom kind of setting, that, yeah, you know, what does that mean? But what it really means is get involved, establish these partnerships, because look at all the people it took just to do our Colorado Center and Colorado Station, University Station project. And if you don't have that understanding that you've got to involve people completely across the spectrum, you're never going to get there. So I think RTD would tell you, hopefully, that what we do to try to bring the pieces together and work better down on our little level helps them accomplish what they need to do, and what the city and county of Denver, and then to have a great evolution like Chris Nevitt being a city councilman, an important, effective, great city councilman for a long time, agree to come on our board, agree to get involved, become the city's TOD director, and now our chair, is just a great story in itself about public-private partnerships. So hopefully that will be the tagline for a long, long time, but don't forget the partnership. We talk a lot about the public and the private, but this whole partnership thing is what makes it all happen. And thank you very much for the award. It's been a great run. I will drop in on meetings and speak when I'm not supposed to. There's a big vote about even giving me the microphone this morning, so I'm done. Thank you all again. Thanks to all my former board members over the years, and all the folks that have been involved. If I left anybody out, I'm sorry. My good friend Mark Levine. It's just amazing that in this role, and anything we've ever tried to do in transportation solutions, here I am. I'm a real estate developer, you know, flourishing in good times, starving in bad times. I pick up the phone in either good times or bad, and reach out and ask a city council person or an executive in an organization or a major player on the DU campus. Everybody comes to the table. So it's a great thing to have been involved in. I'm going to keep coming around, Stuart. And finally, to Stuart, I can't say, you got an incredible talent right here in the room, and Stuart Anderson, and hopefully he'll stay with us and do this for a long time. So thank you very much.
Well, good morning, everyone. I'm like triple mic'd up here, so in case one doesn't work, of course, we have backups. I am so pleased to be here, back in my hometown. Denver is my home. I'm a native, and I'm so happy to see so many familiar faces and colleagues that I worked with over the years. My RTD family, I still consider myself part of the RTD family. Former board members that I've seen and current ones. So I'm very pleased to be here. I will tell you that our LA Metro CEO, Philip Washington, former RTD CEO, sends his best wishes. And Rick Clark as well, who is the Chief Program Management Officer at LA Metro, used to run all of the program management here at RTD in Denver. And so while we loved our days here at RTD, we're continuing the good work in Los Angeles. So, you know, this stuff is so passionate for all of us. When I come home, which I do about every 3 weeks because this is my permanent home, and I hop on the A-Line train and I go down to Union Station, it is a tremendous sense of pride because all of the work that goes into these projects and what we end up seeing happen through our collective hard work is really quite incredible. And it takes so many partners, as Mr. Thorne very eloquently said a little bit ago, it takes so many people to impact change as it relates to how we move around our communities. And so that is in fact, I have to tell you a little quick story. The first time I ever took the A-Line, it was about a week after it opened. I wasn't able to be here for the opening ceremony, but about a week later, I came home. And I hopped on the train for the first time. And when I heard the train horn sound for the first time, I started crying. I literally got tears in my eyes and I got choked up to hear that train horn, because we know how much work this all takes to get these projects done. And so I just say it's been a pleasure to be with all of you in that road ahead of what has gotten us to where we are today, and all the great work that continues here to get us to tomorrow, whatever that mobility story is. So I'm going to tell you our story about LA Metro's mobility journey. LA County is the most populous county in America, 10 million people and growing. Over the next 40 years, we anticipate about 2.4 million people to grow into Los Angeles County. Nobody has to tell us that we're the most congested city in America. There was a study that came out a couple weeks ago, and I was up early, doing some work on my laptop, and I heard the morning news saying that this new study designated Los Angeles as the most congested city in the country. Really? That's a news flash, because I'm pretty sure we all knew that. This is a real picture in Los Angeles County. LA Metro has a very unique role in that we're the operator, obviously, of bus and transit across Los Angeles County. We also are the financer for cities, because we have what is called local return. And so a percentage of, more than just a percentage, but some of the local sales tax that we generate, we give back to the cities, the 88 cities of Los Angeles County, in the form of what we call local return, to do their own local transportation projects. We also help fund MetroLink, which is our large inter-county commuter rail. And we also help fund highway projects. So we're the transit people, but we're also the highway people, working in collaboration with Caltrans, the highway department. We also are the chief regional transportation planner in the county, and the builder, of course, of not only transit projects, but of highway projects. So LA Metro has a very unique role as it relates to a transit agency. We currently have 4 rail lines in construction. We have about 30-ish projects that are in planning or design phases right now. Some of those are small projects, some are very large projects, bus rapid transit projects, new rail lines, major redevelopment areas. So we have a lot going on there, and that is the thanks to the local investment and the confidence that the people of Los Angeles County put in Metro by voting for 2 major tax measures that really have helped to get us to where we are. Measure R, that was a half-cent sales tax that passed in 2008, and then Measure M, which is the sales tax that passed in November of 2016, another half-cent tax, but it also extends the Measure R tax beyond what was initially set to sunset in 2039, and both of those taxes then carry on in perpetuity until voters decide to end it, and I'll talk about that in just a second. So what we are doing is transforming transportation across Los Angeles County with many partners, much as what I mentioned happens here in Denver. Public-private partners, city partners, state partners, federal partners, it all happens, all of us together. And so we'll cut to a short video to tell you the Measure M story, and then I'll carry on.
Los Angeles County, 10 million people, all with different places to go. Metro helps move them with 2,000 buses on 170 routes and 105 miles of rail. And we're building more. Still, LA residents spend an average of 104 hours a year stuck in traffic. And with an additional 2.3 million people projected to live in the county in the next 40 years, the demands on the existing transportation network will only increase. Public transportation took a big step forward on November 8, 2016, when an impressive 71% of Los Angeles County voters approved Measure M, a bold ballot measurement for infrastructure, air quality, and quality of life. For the fourth time since 1980, Metro helped voters see the value in investing in their transportation future. The result? An additional half-cent sales tax with no sunset and extending a previously approved half-cent tax set to expire in 2039 to continue in perpetuity. Among the benefits of Measure M, 40 major transit and highway projects in 40 years, all for an average of another $24 per person per year. So, what projects do the residents of LA County have to look forward to over the next 40 years? Well, there's the Airport Metro Connector Station, West Side Purple Line Extension, Foothill Extension, Orange Line BRT West Santa Ana Branch Light Rail, Sepulveda Pass, Orange Red Line to Gold Line East San Fernando Valley Transit, Okay, you get the point. There's a lot to look forward to, and these projects are only one piece of Measure M. Regional collaboration through a transparent, bottom-up process with stakeholders was vital to the measure's success and resulted in a comprehensive plan that encompasses several elements. This includes funding to enhance bus and rail operations to keep the system running efficiently and affordably for generations to come. It'll also fund local transportation projects such as street improvements and repairs for the 88 cities in LA County. Measure M will build new bike and pedestrian connections to create more safe and convenient first-mile, last-mile connections like biking and walking paths. New programs will be developed for seniors, students, and the disabled to ensure everyone has access to our transit system. Sustained funding will keep our system in good repair for the next 100 years through preventative maintenance and replacement of aging equipment. Measure M will create 778,000 jobs through construction and programs and have a $133.3 billion economic impact. The passing of Measure M has elevated Los Angeles County's transportation revolution to a whole new level.
My ideal Los Angeles 30 years from now may look similar to New York City, where people are choosing the train over their cars.
I think it'll get people, A, to be outside more. I think being outside, enjoying the weather, the city we have is great. Less time on the roads, less congestion, less traffic. I think we all want that.
Thanks to LA County voters, we're one step closer to realizing the vision of a transformed, multimodal LA County. But the work is just beginning, and we couldn't be more excited.
The next stop is
So instead of me telling you all about it, we thought it was a better idea to put together a video and just in brief showcase what Measure M is. So a lot of times people say, hey, how did you do this? How did you pass a measure like this that goes on in perpetuity with 71.15% of the vote? Well, it's difficult in Los Angeles County because we have to have a 2/3 approval anyway. So that threshold of getting to like 66.67%, that's not easy. Now, when we passed the Fast Tax Initiative in 2004 here in Denver, and we passed that 0.4% sales tax measure, that passed at 58%. And we thought we were rock stars, right? Which we were. And we were so pleased because that was a substantial approval by voters. So we had to get at least that 66.67% in Los Angeles County, and we went far beyond that. And so that was an interesting exercise in the things we did to get there. And again, this was a real team effort. So when we have people who say, how did you do this? How would we craft a ballot measure? I know this is something that's being considered here in Colorado again. I think that's wonderful. How we did it was through a very open and transparent process, a bottom-up process where we literally worked with our partners across the region in what we call subregions, in the different subregions of the county, the councils of government in each of those, and we said, hey, you're gonna be at the table with us, and you're going to help us craft what this program is gonna become. And you're going to help us put this project list together. So they all went on their merry way, and they put their projects together that are most substantial and most important in their communities. And the collective list to start with ended up being something like $273 billion. And we were projecting initially about a 40-year tax that would generate about $120 billion. So we said, folks, we have some work to do. We gave them each targets for how their community performs best. Current population, future population, current employment, future employment, however they perform best as a subregion, and gave them targets. They then met those targets, whittled down their lists, submitted their lists, and we then had a project list collectively that we could do something with. But they all felt like they were a part of crafting this from the beginning. And that was substantial. We really did open this up and listen to people. Once the project list was put together, then guess what the fun exercise is? The sequencing, right? What comes first, second, third? That's a painful exercise. So our CEO, Philip Washington, said, you know what? We're gonna put together some performance metrics that we will rank, we evaluate and rank each of these projects on something real, and that's how we're going to determine this. So we came up with 5 performance metrics that had various different sub-metrics under them. Things like how well the project would create better mobility, how well it would provide better access to different places, create better safety, economic benefit, and quality of life and sustainability. And then we had something real to start crafting this list in a sequence. And so then we gave elected officials and our stakeholder partners and the COGS an opportunity to weigh in on those criteria before we ever really did the whole ranking. So that whole process was big time for us. Also, a robust public education program that my team headed. We did a lot of public education, and then once the board determined to put the ballot measure on the ballot, we did public information. An outside campaign team did the advocacy campaign, but my team still did a very robust public education program, and I'll talk about that in a second. This was another reason why that ballot measure was so successful. LA Mayor Eric Garcetti became the face of the campaign, much like then Mayor, current Governor John Hickenlooper was the face of the Fast Tracks campaign. And these folks have to put themselves out there and have the intestinal fortitude and take a risk politically to put their name and face on these projects, right? On these ballot measures. So Mayor Garcetti was out there in force, as well as our CEO, Philip Washington. Now this was on a Saturday when we had these transit tailgates at USC and at the LA Rams games, where we then, as Metro staff on a weekend, could go out and remind people to vote on election day, handed out materials, and we were all in it together. But this bold leadership was significant. And remember I mentioned that initially this was supposed to be a 40-year, $120 billion program, right? Well, we started, Phil actually told us when we were putting together the draft plan, he told the staff, model 45 years and 50 years. Let's just see what we could get for that extra bonding capacity and what we could get done in addition. So we did that, and the 50-year kind of started gaining some support. So when we had the draft plan that went out and we took public input, we tweaked the plan, and it then came back to the board in June of 2016, the final plan. We had done a public opinion survey in May of 2016, and we tested the No Sunset Plan and the 50-year plan. And the No Sunset Plan tested better. It got more support than the 50-year plan. That opened the door for the Metro Board and Phil and I think our collective stakeholders to say, hey, you know what? We might have a promise here that people would actually support a no sunset. And when we did focus groups, people were like, we would support this. We just want to know that the money is being spent as intended. The other thing that people really got was, again, and this was bold leadership, was the concept of state of good repair. It's one thing to build all these projects, but it's another thing to take care of them so that they're in good working condition. And we equated that to the public, talking about if you buy a car, you're not going to never take care of it, right? You're going to get oil changes. You're going to take it to the maintenance shop. You're going to change the tires every now and then. Guess what? People get that stuff. And so for the first time in anything that we were aware of, state of good repair was embedded in a tax measure that was about integrating new projects, but also some funding that was dedicated to state of good repair. There also was more money for local return, giving money back to all the cities to do their local transportation projects, pothole repairs, street improvements, their own bike and pedestrian pathways, signal improvements, those types of things. So then all the cities are in it, right? So this was not just a new build plan. This was a comprehensive program that had many elements of it that people actually felt like there was something in it for them. And that No Sunset took off, and our leaders went forward and said, we're going for it. And so I want to tell you a little story about my team and when we were trying to craft the messaging platform for our public education program. I mean, I'm all about the people. We work for the people. And, you know, there are groups of us that are in the weeds of this stuff, and we're down in the nitty-gritty of planning these projects and all, right? And we're the ones that make it happen. But we're like the minority percentage of the people out there. Most people, they just want to know you're doing what we put you in office to do, or you're doing what's best with our tax money. We trust you. Goodbye, don't bother me, just do what we told you to do. So how are we going to get to those people? So we went to the people to help us develop our messaging platform through focus groups, through social media surveys, and tested phraseology and words, and how do people talk about this stuff? And that's what helped us create our materials and the phrases that we used, whether we were out doing presentations or in our materials or in social media or in little video vignettes that we did. And so that was a big deal too, because again, we're talking about the people that have to be convinced that what you're doing is really right for them. The other thing we did about the people is we just had some fun. And, you know, we got to a point in September of 2016 where the campaign had done a poll, and the support for Measure M dropped a little bit, and people started freaking out, right? Everybody looks at these polls and everybody freaks out every time they do whatever. So there were some folks like, what do we do? What's the strategy? Whatever. And there was a group of us that had got together with the mayor's staff and our executive staff, and we said, let's just have some fun. We've done everything we can do. So we created these pop-up events. We had a transit flash mob that broke out into dance with transportation-related music and created some fun. We handed out, I don't know how many tons of M&Ms for Measure M and just reminded people to vote. And we stapled, my staff was stapling little packets of M&Ms to our informational materials and handing them out everywhere. And, you know, Phil, the mayor, our then chair, John Fasana, here's the flash mob. They were out there with the flash mob. We were having fun. All these people at the transit tailgates joining in. And so we can't ever overlook the people connection and the importance of just being down on their level and just having some fun and connecting with them on a person-to-person level. That was a big deal for us. So I want to move on and talk about some of the other things contributing to our mobility story. We have this massive project, our Los Angeles Union Station redevelopment, much like Denver Union Station redevelopment, only the unfortunate thing is that in Measure M, there isn't dedicated funding for Union Station. That is probably, in my opinion, the biggest downfall of Measure M, is that there was not money dedicated to the redevelopment of Los Angeles Union Station. There are some buckets of money in Measure M that we can use for Union Station, but nothing dedicated, as was the case with Fast Tracks here. This is going to take, as the redevelopment of Denver Union Station, a combination of funding sources to make this happen. And we already are making some headway in that. We're putting forth grant applications for some of our Senate Bill 1 money, the transportation funding that was passed by the California legislature. We're looking at various other sources, private funding, but this is going to be a big deal, this redevelopment of Los Angeles Union Station. It's a beautiful site. Metro owns 50 acres around Union Station, and so this will be a big part of us enhancing mobility. This is a rendering of one of the two concourse ideas. This is the above grade concourse, which will likely be the selected one. There's also an at grade concourse. This one is less expensive and seems to meet people's appeal more. But this has a couple of components, the redevelopment, the transit redevelopment as Denver Union Station, and then the redevelopment around it. And it isn't just immediately around Union Station, but even going into around the Civic Center area and other neighborhoods that are around Union Station that Metro does not own. And so we will be integrating Metro Transit, MetroLink, which is our large commuter rail, inter-county transit, Amtrak, and then in the future, California high-speed rail. Our joint development folks are also working on a major collaboration process with the City of Los Angeles in coordinating land use and planning efforts and working out some TIF opportunities, some feasibility studies on what could be TIFed, and looking at what we might be able to do in the larger area to create a TIF district. So this is much more expansive than even just the property that Metro owns around Union Station. This is a very interesting project that's part of the mobility plan for Union Station. It's called our Forecourt and Esplanade project, which is designed to make it more walkable and bicycle friendly right around Union Station. The idea being taking 6 lanes of traffic down to 4 lanes and opening that up for pedestrian and bikeways, and then making the pedestrian connections flush with the street, making it more comfortable. People don't have to then step off a curb, that type of thing. So there's grant funding already identified and committed for this project, and this will be happening as part of that. And it's designed to be just a very fluid, comfortable atmosphere. Many of the people who move around the Metro Union Station area do so by bike and by foot, and so it's designed to capture that. We have a very, very robust joint development program at Metro. It actually started in the 1990s. We have had 17 joint development projects that have already been implemented over the years. We have 10 more that are in negotiations, and we have 17 that are opportunity sites for the future. And we have a 4-phase process of our joint development efforts, and these are various scales. Some are smaller, more intimate scale joint developments. Some of them are larger scale that involve hotel, that have affordable housing and also market housing, of course, restaurants and what have you. In some cases, daycare facilities, childcare facilities. So there's various scales of the joint development projects we have. What's interesting is really the first phase of the 4 phases of our joint development program is a public input process, a community input process that helps to determine whatever the development guidelines will be for that particular development. And affordable housing is an interesting animal because we all know that this is something we need to look out for so that we cannot displace people, and so when we build these transportation improvements, that we aren't displacing folks, right? Recently, we did a joint development in the Expo Crenshaw area. The Crenshaw line is one of the light rail lines that's currently in construction. And when we did the public input process for that joint development around one of those major station areas, the community did not want affordable housing. And they came out very strong and clear about that. So it's just very interesting how different communities are going to provide different input that then helps create those development guidelines for that specific project. But that was an interesting outcome to many people, was that that community did not want a development to have affordable housing. So there's just a lot of nuances out there when we're looking at these developments. Transit-oriented communities is a big deal as well, excuse me, very tied to joint development. On Metro property, we require that developers have about 35% of the housing identified as affordable housing. And so that is something that Metro has in our transit-oriented communities plan. And again, I talk about the displacement is making sure that we are being thoughtful in this planning for everyone around the area and those that are going to be new to enjoy the area. I will mention this was one of the first transit-oriented developments that Metro did as a program on their property. And I live in this complex, right? I didn't take this picture, but I got this from our joint development people, but I live there, right there, near our one of our Gold Line stations, and I have to say, it is unbelievable. It is so wonderful to be able to walk, hop down, cross the tracks, get right on the train, and it is a mixed community, and it is a lovely development, and I'm very happy to be a part of that. Active transportation and first last mile, we have strategic plans for both of these. They dovetail, and there are some complementary natures to the active transportation and first last mile, but this is significant. Our board has told our staff they want us to be looking at and examining the station areas around all of our stations for what we can do to provide better access, work with the local communities to do that, better wayfinding, better safety, safe routes to school, what can we do with better lighting and such. So this is all part of our effort moving forward. Bike share as well. A couple of years ago, Metro launched its first bike share program, Downtown Los Angeles Bike Share. We now have 4 bike shares that we have launched, and some of them have taken a while to catch on. The bike share program here in Denver is fantastic, and so slowly Metro is seeing the bike share program growing. We also are embarking upon a reimagining of our bus service. For the first time in 25 years, Metro is doing a holistic change of our bus plan so that we can take a look at what are we doing, what can we do better, And how do we now reflect our bus service in the way that people move around Los Angeles County, taking into account all the various methods and modes of transportation and how we can complement that. And so this is a project that we are just starting. The goal is we will do this in 4 phases. The first phase, which actually starts next week, is listening. And we're very deliberate about this, wanting to listen to people's experience on Metro. What is it like? What can we do better? What are we doing well? And how this then gives us a layer of information to start developing service concepts, which we'll take out to the public and then come up with a service plan and then hopefully implement this in the fall of 2019. We also are embarking upon a microtransit pilot project, and we are in the procurement process right now to select a team to do an agreement that will have 2 phases. This will be the first phase of planning and analysis of looking at what would be the best way to start this pilot project, and the second phase being the implementation. And so we are going full bore at how we are going to start doing an Uber or Lyft-like type of bus service at Metro, and whether or not this can be successful in Los Angeles County. I mentioned first last mile earlier. That's a substantial effort that we have at our station areas. Also, looking out to the future of how we make sure that there are people in transportation related jobs. We are building career pathways in various ways. We have about 40% of the staff at Metro will be within retirement age in 5 years, and 70% of the staff at Metro are 40 years or older. And so these hard to fill transportation jobs that are most critical, we almost in the transportation industry are in kind of almost a critical mode, because we are going to be losing that knowledge. So we're trying to encourage people, women and girls, to get into non-transportation or non-typical traditional transportation related jobs. Children, youth. Our CEO has initiated an idea of a transportation school for 6th through 12th grade to try to get to young people early in helping them to learn about the careers they can build in transportation. And so this is another opportunity that is forthcoming. And I think, again, when we talk about the people and the youth and what can we do now to set in motion not only benefits for today, but benefits for the future, for our children and for our grandchildren and those that come after us. So it's not only about investing and committing into better mobility for today, but knowing that we're doing what we can that will live on after us. And we don't even think about sometimes the ways that we are changing people's lives and impacting people in ways that they don't even think about. They don't even think about it, and they shouldn't have to think about it, because when they hop on the train or hop on a bus, that's all they should worry about, is that we're going to get them there safely, as quickly as possible, as reliably as possible, providing as many options as possible, easy connectivity, right? And who knows what tomorrow brings? Innovation, right? We have an Office of Extraordinary Innovation at Metro that is exploring different ways of doing things. We weren't talking about driverless vehicles not long ago, right? But we are now, and who knows in 5 or 10 years. So we have to be open to change, open to thoughts, open to ideas, and open to helping find better ways to bring people back one of life's most important commodities, which is time. Time to do whatever they want. It may not be necessarily quickest to take this train or this bus from point A to point B. Maybe driving actually might get you there quicker, but the time that you save in doing other things while taking transit that you can't do while you're stuck in your car, right? You're frustrated, you're stuck in traffic, You can't be looking at your email or your texting. You shouldn't be anyway. But when you're on transit and you don't have to worry about the driving, you're getting time back in your life for what you're able to do instead of being focused on driving in traffic. So that's a lot of information in a fairly short time frame. So I appreciate you listening to our story. I am happy to answer any questions that you have. And if you would like me to expand upon anything else, I gave you a myriad of topic areas, but again, I'm happy to answer any questions. Mr. James.
Thanks, Pauletta. Great talk. And particularly interested in Measure M. At RTD and Denver Metro. Say it again. Around here, we were the rock star when we passed fast tracks across the country. LA is now the rock star. Past Measure M. What's on our plate today in Colorado is really more statewide. And it's about integration of highway transportation as well as all the mobility that we're all interested in. And coming from Colorado to LA, I'm interested in your perspective of the challenge here is to do the same thing you did. Doesn't mean a supermajority, but it's statewide. And we have different political landscape, rural as opposed to urban here. Any thoughts you have about what's the best way to accomplish the statewide, agenda that we have to have here today?
Yes, absolutely, and thank you for asking. I've talked to various people about this. I was here for the Colorado Transportation Summit back in, I believe it was September, and I had this conversation with various people. And I was talking to Catherine Marinelli back here this morning about this, that the way I understand it, there are 3 options right now that are being considered, different tax levels. This is my personal opinion, is I would go for the amount that's gonna help you do what you have to do in the least amount of time possible, which sounds like a cent, right? Measure R was a half cent in 2008. Measure M was a half cent in 2016. So we had to go back in 2016 because Measure R did not provide enough funding to do everything we wanted to do. Now, I will say, Measure M isn't going to provide everything either, because I mentioned to you that first list of $273 billion that people wanted. Some of it was real wish list, but I would say that if you can generate the interest and the importance by the people, by showing not only the progress that's happened through their local investment, but the state of affairs across the state of Colorado right now in the need, also the directive that we're getting from the federal government that they want to see communities fund things at the local level more, and that we aren't going to be able to count on federal funding, at least we don't think, to the degree that we used to. It is absolutely going to be important that on the local and state level, the funding is going to be adequate to do something. And it's interesting, I'll give you a quick thing that's going on in LA right now related to homelessness. Homelessness is a big time problem in Los Angeles. And I know it is here and it is a lot of places in the country, but there was a homeless tax at the city level, at Los Angeles and LA County level back in 2016 also. And those passed because people knew it was such a significant problem. And guess what? It's barely gonna scratch the surface to make any inroads in helping the homeless problem. And there's a big to-do about this right now because people are trying to figure out how to spread the money around to make impact. So my suggestion would be, go for what you really need. And people are either going to support a tax measure or not. It's kind of like, are we going to get pregnant or not? You're not going to be in it for a little bit. You're in for the whole enchilada, right? So do something that's going to make an impact. And the education part of it is starting early in helping people to see the progress that's being made through their local investment, helping to learn from the people, what is it that will resonate with them? What are the words and the phrases and the things that they care about? Oftentimes we, as the grass tops and the people who do this every day, we think we know what the people want. Many times we don't. And it's so simple, but it's going to them in focus groups and in surveys and small, intimate, like dinner kit meetings or whatever, to see what it is that resonates with the people and build your education program around what really resonates with the people. That's my suggestion. Mr. Elfenbein, it's good to see you again.
Great to see you. Thanks for coming back. You are surrounded, besides having the 10 million people in LA County, you're surrounded by a whole bunch of other counties that probably have another 10 million people. Are you getting cooperation from those counties? And if you are, or if you're not, what is the solution so we can look at it from here?
Yeah. So, yes, we have San Bernardino County, Ventura County, Orange County, Riverside County, all right around us. So we consider them our family too, right? Our extended family in Southern California. Our MetroLink commuter rail that I've mentioned a couple of times, that is the service that serves all those other counties, and it's an inter-county service. So we fund MetroLink partially. We also have a very solid collaboration with all of those counties. And as it relates to California high-speed rail coming into some of those counties and us, we are collaborating. But I would say we have regular meetings with the heads of the counties and their transportation agencies. And there's a group called Mobility 21 that is kind of a cross-county mobility agency that really pulls a lot of us together. I would say as Colorado looks at how do we interface, it has to be a combination of the importance that will be invested in urban areas and rural areas, because this is a big deal now, right? And especially at the federal level, is making sure that rural communities have the funding that they need as well. So it's recognizing these different sectors and what it is that we can provide for each of them and show them the path forward for those counties. The path forward, what is it that they need? Because it's going to be very different with what each county is going to need and how you build the coalition in each of those counties to support what they're going to benefit from in a potential ballot measure. So, other questions or things that I didn't make as clear? Yes, sir, Mr. Thorne.
I just didn't want to be outdone by all of my predecessors at RTD. So you have some experience here, and you have some experience there. What are we doing here right that we should do more of?
Wow, well, that's a great question. And I think a lot of things are going right here in Denver. I mean, it's not just RTD, but this larger community, this greater Denver metropolitan area is an example for the nation already and has been. I mean, you know, it makes me crazy to hear all this stuff about, you know, the A-line trains and this and that, because it's like, okay, bumps in the road, we're over that. This train is one of the best things in this city in years. And guess what? In not too many years, people are going to go, what issues with the train? This community, what it did to build out fast tracks, implementing all this wonderful development around station areas. Some of you talked earlier today about the various projects that you're working on. Education, healthcare. There is so much going on right in this community. And again, for me, I think it gets back to being visionary, innovation, strong leadership, and really thoughtful listening to the people. So I can speak to it just because I spent 12 years at RTD, that RTD and the city and county of Denver and the larger metro area, this is still a rock star community. And I think it set the pace for many other communities. It sure did for Los Angeles County, because when they knew that they wanted a ballot measure passed, they wanted to hire the CEO from RTD, who was a part of all of this visionary nature and making it come true. So guess what? A lot of these same people are in this room, and people you work with every day. And everybody pulled together to pass fast tracks in 2004, many in this room. And it can happen again. And again, I would just say, trust your gut instincts of what went right for all the things that you've done already and are continuing to do, and be strategic and thoughtful and bold. And I mean, I remember the meetings that we had shifting to a no sunset. Oh, I want to tell, this was the story I was going to tell you guys. I want to tell you this about the no sunset. So when we were having these meetings, I will admit, I was one of the people that was the dissenters that said, I don't know how we're going to do this, because we've been educating people about a 40-year tax, or maybe we'd go to a 50-year, and now we're going to go to a no sunset. And I was one of them that said, this is a tough sell, guys. And I admit I was wrong, because the people were like, fine, just do it. They want to see improvement. And when you stop and think about it, you know, whether it's 40-year, 50-year, or in perpetuity, this was the other thing. Transportation is always going to be important. It's always going to be needed. It won't end in 40 years. That's one of your best messages. Transportation improvement is going to be an ongoing forever thing, and we need to have a sustained funding stream to help get us there. But how we came up with the ballot language, my team actually crafted the ballot language. 75-word limit, and every word had to count, right? Those were fascinating meetings. What words? If the, you know, take this word out, got to add a word. We took 4 out here, we can add 4 more. We came up with how to talk about, because we had to say the length of the tax, and we came up with until voters decide to end it. Because that's true. They can decide to end it any day. The people have the power to do that. And so in the ballot language, that's how it reads. Until voters decide to end it. And you know what? People were like, okay, fine. But again, it's that transportation is an ongoing need, and it always will be, and we need to have a sustained funding stream to get us there. So that was really, you know, a fascinating exercise in and of itself. Mr. Thorne.
Thank you. Katie, you sure you got everything out there that you wanted to? Great answer, by the way. Before going on to my question about joint development, I think our problem on this coming highway tax, transportation, sales tax, whatever, is going to be, guess what, politics. Because instead of being focused like Fast Tracks was, where everybody could see what the impact could be, it's going to be spread. Everybody's got a sacred cow in transportation. It's this stretch of I-70, that stretch of some road in, you know, a faraway county, which is important to those people, but it's really hard to communicate to the rest of us. So I think Maria Garcia Berry, the election queen, has a job cut out for her, and we all need to support that effort. I totally agree. My question is about joint development. Over the years, I've spoken to people from LA Metro, and I've spoken to Phil since he's been out there, and by the way, please give him and Rick Dark our regard.
Absolutely.
Tell him, good luck, keep on keeping on. But joint development, and Bill Sorori and I go way back and worked on dozens of projects, some of which have been transportation solutions type, where I'm trying to do my thing as being involved with a nonprofit, others as a developer, a private developer, trying to get something done. It just seemed like you guys had more tools to bring to the party, even before, the current brain trust from Colorado went out there to show those guys in LA how to do it. But it seems to me that that's an area, we all talk about first mile, last mile, but talk about joint development and how we build these vertical improvements that end up being part of the first mile, last mile, can generate other funds to help get that done. But I don't think, between RTD and what they have available and what the private sector needs, and often is not much more than, cooperation and coming up with the vehicle to try to get through the morass of things you have to do when you got CDOT involved in RTD. You have more tools, and I'd like you to talk about, at least my view is, Mike, I'd like you to talk about that, because you're uniquely able to look at what RTD has to deal with and has historically been able to, and what you walked into when you went out to Los Angeles. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Those are thoughtful comments. So first I would say that yes, it's all about various partners working together, and as you said earlier this morning, the public-private partnership concept has got to happen. I mean, everybody's got to be at the table. It's actually a public-private partnership more than anything. Public on RTD's end, public from the cities and counties, public on the state's end, private on developers and property owners and what have you. And I would say that while Fast Tracks is pretty much completed in terms of what there's funds to build right now, we have the North Metro and the Southeast Extension, of course, still in construction, which is fantastic still when you stop and think about it. It's going to be a continuing process of looking for funding funding sources. And as far as Los Angeles goes, I mean, there's a very thoughtful joint development program there that has been going on for a while at LA Metro. But again, we have challenges too. We have challenges, and I mean, it's funny, everybody thinks we're money bags now in Los Angeles because we passed Measure M. And it's amazing how much money we don't have for things. Seriously. We don't have all the money to do all these things at our fingertips. Some of this is going to be years-long processes of how do we piece together funding here and piece together funding there and explore a new TIF district there. What can we do on the state level? What will happen at the federal level? So it's going to be a continuing exercise of how we can all make this happen. And each joint development is going to be unique to the culture and the elements and character of a community. So some of them will be small scale, some of them will be on a grander scale, but it's going to have to be people coming to the table and investing time, innovation, money, hard work, years-long effort. But by no means in LA do we have all the money we would like to do things. As I mentioned, the Los Angeles Union Station redevelopment, there isn't a huge chunk of money identified. So we're trying to piecemeal various funding sources, much like what we did here with Denver Union Station, but at least there was a good chunk of money, right, in Fast Tracks and from the city and from CDOT and DRCOG to make that happen, to give us a real good base and foundation. So it's going to take, I think, everybody to continue to look differently at how to do joint development and how to really look at the character of a community for what will help the people the most. And it's showing the people along the way. and even incorporating them into the plans and listening to the people. Yes, sir, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Paula. I'm following up on the theme of innovation. First of all, thank you very much for being here and for your comments. They're very helpful. In terms of following up on innovation and the microtransit solutions you were talking about, I'm wondering what role does LA Metro envision for autonomous vehicles in all of this? I didn't see any of that discussed in here, and I'm just wondering where are you in terms of trying to integrate autonomous vehicles into the system?
Yeah, that's a great question. So we haven't really, we've done some exploration on how that would integrate into our service, but I will say it's not something that we've put a major emphasis on. Looking at how we provide our service in a little different way is really focused right now on microtransit and how we can see how to bring that to fruition and how that could be a success. As I'm sure you know, there have been different parts of the country where this has not been successful and it hasn't been a successful model. So we're trying to learn from other projects in what we can do to change the model of this one and see how we do that. I will tell you there's been some lukewarm reception by our unions when it relates to microtransit or autonomous vehicles, because for obvious reasons. And so we don't even know yet how we'll operate the microtransit pilot, if we'll utilize our own union staff, Metro employees, or if we would be setting up a different operation. We don't know those answers yet, but there's been a major sensitivity about that. And I know that's not unique to Los Angeles. Many unions have not embraced that concept very well. Yes, ma'am. Oh, yes. You guys fight it out. Two quick questions, and I'll keep it quick.
I like to point out to people that our Fast Tracks vote was literally half my lifetime ago, and I'd really like the chance to be able to vote on something.
Yeah! There's one of your spokespeople right there.
Well, I'm an advocate, and so my question is about brave leadership. I really liked that slide that you had up there. So what's your advice to an advocate like me, not on how to get voters on board, but how to get champions at the grass tops level on board?
Oh my gosh, that's a wonderful, powerful statement and question. And I think everybody sees today the power that young people are starting to feel to rise up and to say, we have a voice, we matter, we are the future, and we want to have our place in the sun now. And so without question, I love your comment. I didn't even get to vote on Fast Tracks. I want to vote on something. There's a lot like her out there. So that's part of this coalition building, is getting to lots of different generations and age groups, the millennial generation, the young people who are going to be the future, that are going to utilize all this wonderful infrastructure we're building out. As I said earlier, we want to see benefits today, but what we do, we have to be okay with investing today for what's going to live on beyond us. And the younger generation has power to help build up their own generation to be advocates for this. That's a great comment. I love that. Yes, ma'am. And then this will be our final one.
I'm Jean Tubb. I'm with University Park Community Council, which is neighboring to DU.
Hello.
We put a lot of input into certain aspects of transportation solutions, and then we consulted, and they've done great. My question is, I grew up in Arizona, in Scottsdale, big grid place, right? Huge grid. People are, the attitude is, I want to get where I want to go, when I want to go, see it. Okay, Denver, big grid, again, LA, huge grid. And so there is that mentality of how do I negotiate this huge grid and get where I want to go using public transportation, throwing in the fact that there is worse weather in Denver if you want to bike or walk and carry things. It's much more difficult at certain times. So I don't know if you have any advice as to how to fulcrum the perception of, I live in a big grid area, there can be a solution, because
Yeah, that's great. Well, and I know in LA, a survey that was done showed that 50% of people who move around our station areas are coming and going within 3 miles. And so what is it that we can do within micro community feel to enhance, you know, usability and the various ways that people will, you know, use different modes of transportation. While Colorado weather has a factor of maybe how much people want to bike or walk, I can't believe still in the cold weather how many people I see all over walking and biking. People are used to it. They're hardcore here in Colorado. I had to recalibrate my blood last night, my Colorado blood, when I got here. I was like, I went down to the train station, I was like, yikes! I'm too Southern California prone here now with my blood. But I would say it's really about looking at things from a community level, and then on a grander scale, on a larger scale of how everything integrates and interconnects. It's about continuing to look for various options and continuing to just take baby steps at it. There's not going to be holistic change. Some people are never going to ride a bike. They're never going to walk 5 blocks to a station. Other people will come along lightly, and others, younger generation, are going to be there and forced to help make those things effective. So I thank you for the wonderful questions and for listening and allowing me to be here to see all of you today. I'll be hanging around, so thank you, and for all the work that you do for this wonderful place.
Our next segment is going to be mostly a Q&A format for you folks to ask questions about the conference theme. We have an excellent panel of experts here to share a variety of information. I'm Stuart Anderson with Transportation Solutions. I've been with Transportation Solutions for about 3 years now, and so this is the 3rd conference that we've had, and I think we have a very interesting topic here. So we're going to have our microphone in the middle of the floor, so if when you do have questions, go ahead and walk up to that. But before we get started, I'm going to ask each of our speakers to introduce themselves. On the back of your agenda, you'll see their biographic statement that's there. Statement on the back, but we're going to go ahead and start with Mark Levine with the University of Denver.
Thank you, Stuart. I guess I am Mark Levine from the University of Denver. I'm sitting where I am because it was questionable whether I should even be involved, so they put me closer to get off the stage soon. So I'll leave, Stuart, as you promised me. I was asked to give a little background why I'm involved somewhat in this area. I'm happy to do it, and I'm honored to be here. Stuart, thank you and the group, Transportation Solutions, everyone. It's my honor, and of course, I get a free bike in a minute, right?
You get a bike. You get a bike.
Everybody gets a bike. Of course, it's $1 an hour, right? Afterwards. Anyway, I'm at the University of Denver. I actually been at DU so long I don't want to talk about it, how long, but a long, long time. As a director of the Burns School of Real Estate Construction Management, which you might wonder why that has anything to do with things here, and I'll explain that in a second. I'm no longer director. I stepped down a few years ago. I've been and continue to be a professor there, teaching in the real estate area, construction management, and I was past director also of the legal studies. So I have a law background and whatever other background. The University of Denver has obviously been instrumental and very involved, and you've all seen that. Here we are at the university, so I'm proud of the university and proud of our involvement there. The idea of transportation and so forth has been a piece of what we do in connection with real estate, and I'm going to say law and others I'll mention quickly. But I got involved in this area because I drove down the street and I looked and I said, oh my gosh, with driverless vehicles coming, and I'm one that's very, very convinced that they're already here, they're all around us. And if we go many places and we look around, we see no driver, and it's happening more and more. So I got involved in it because I looked down the street and I said, this parts place won't be here anymore, and this retail seller of vehicles won't be here anymore, or at least a good number of these. And the car wash won't be here, and the maintenance and the lube places, because all that's changing now, and it's all tied to computers and artificial intelligence, robotics, and so on. And so I said, on the real estate side, that's going to impact a lot of real estate. I think of Blockbusters, for those who don't know. Yes. I remember when they were going in shopping centers, and I said, aren't those landlords aware that that store won't be here in short order? Because people will use Netflix and lots of other things, and it won't be here. What are they doing? And there are other examples of companies that didn't wake up to the reality of what's happening around us, like Kodak, that employed 170,000 people and had stores all over the world, and we all went traveling and had our film developed and so on, and suddenly they're not there. So I'm saying the same thing with this, and then I'm saying what happens to the real estate and the redevelopment of that real estate and the parking garages that are vertical that won't be around, in my opinion. The question is when, the timing, and so on. So that's how I got involved in this, especially driverless vehicles. And I'll add one other point. Not only have we done a lot of research in this area and papers and so on, that's what these academic people do sometimes, you know, and I wear hats inside the university and outside in the real estate business and so on. But I'm saying, this is amazing what's happening, what's going to happen. So we got involved in that, and then it's a long story, which I'll make short by saying we just did it. We did a conference in Israel with DU very tied in and sponsoring at the Hebrew University in Israel and Jerusalem. And you might say, why there? Because, as many of you know, but maybe not all, there's been a tremendous amount of activity and creativity and implementation in Israel with companies such as Mobileye, which is acquired by another company, and so on. Nexar, lots of big companies in Israel that have been very creative. So we said, let's do a conference out there on driverless vehicles, but it's driverless vehicles impacting, and we had certain areas, real estate, of course, because I was involved, the legal area, which I like to think about too, but also society and the social side, and people who have disabilities who now can be mobile, and somebody who's blind, they can be mobile, they can have transportation. We talk about it in the government and the environment and lots of areas. So that's how I got involved, and in those areas we've done a lot of research, we're only learning, and if there are areas in that come up today, I'm happy to talk about. I was interested to hear that there wasn't a lot of talk about it today. There was one question raised on driverless vehicles. I don't think it's a solution for everything, but I think it's coming, it's here, and it's going to do nothing but grow. So I appreciate the opportunity of being here, and thanks again to Transportation Solutions, Stuart, for everything.
Great. Well, we're glad to have you here. Our next expert is Chandra from OFO. Again, we're very appreciative of you being here, but your product also is a great first and last mile solution. So maybe introduce yourself.
Thanks, Jerry. I'm Chandra Miranda. I'm the Regional General Manager for OFO. I handle the West Coast. I'm really excited to be here. Before joining OFO, I have worked in mobility for about 8 years now, most recently at Zipcar. I was there for over 5 years, all across the country, bringing Zipcar to cities of all sizes, as big as Chicago, to as small as Madison. So I'm deeply invested in mobility. I'm a transportation nerd. I love public transit. I take the light rail in Seattle every single day to work. Really excited for the possibility to bring dogless bike sharing to Denver, especially here at DU. We see a ton of our trips originating at major bus stations, light rail stations, and just transit hubs throughout the cities that we operate in. So really excited to help complete first mile, last mile trips. Also really excited that OFO is so invested in serving underserved communities because of how flexible dockless bikes are. We really can put them in areas throughout the city where traditionally docked bike stations have been too pricey to invest in. So really excited just for this changing mobility landscape. I'm really excited personally and professionally just to be part of it, and really happy to be here to talk to all of you.
Great. Thanks, Chandra. This next guy up happens to be my boss. So, Dr. Nevitt, with the City and County of Denver and former council member for this area, I'll let you introduce yourself. People don't know who you are.
Thank you, Stuart. So in addition to being the chair of Transportation Solutions and getting the giveaway prizes, I'm also the citywide manager for transit-oriented development for the City and County of Denver. So I function at the intersection of the Planning Department, Public Works, the Department of Finance, the Department of Office of Economic Development, and the Mayor's Office to facilitate collaboration, cooperation among all those agencies to achieve our vision for transit-oriented development. TOD is definitely a keystone of our long-term growth strategy. If we continue to grow in an extensive way rather than an intensive way, we are going to choke on our own dust. And so TOD, having more people concentrated near mobility-rich locations to get to everything that they want to get to without using the car, that's our formula for success. And the first last mile challenge is really central to the success of that enterprise. As we've learned, as we've built out fast tracks, and as we've seen TOD develop around stations, something that an important observation is that just because we built the infrastructure doesn't mean people use it. And that's a real problem. So a central part of my job is to try to facilitate the construction of the infrastructure for people to use transit. So, making sure that we get the bike lanes and the sidewalks and that the development is, high density mixed use development is near transit. This is a metaphor I've used before. This is all very much the hardware of transit-oriented development, the hardware of transit-oriented communities. But what we've neglected, and this is why I think the work of Transportation Solutions is so important, and so much of what you folks are doing is so important, is in addition to the hardware, we need to install the software. That is the mindset and the knowledge for people to actually seamlessly and intuitively access the hardware that we've invested so much money in. And I think that's every bit as important. You gotta have the hardware there to access, but the software is so important because, as we've discovered, we've built out a lot of transit, but our mode share has really not moved a great deal. And so we gotta do a lot more to educate our population about their opportunities, to promote those alternative mode opportunities, and then help subsidize those alternative mode opportunities so we get a lot more use out of the hardware that we've constructed. So that's me.
Great. The Denver Regional Council of Government has been a great partner for Transportation Solutions. We've referenced the station area study that we recently did. Well, Denver Regional Council of Governments funded that effort, and if not for that, we wouldn't be where we're at today with the station area planning and the options that we're looking at. We referenced that our station area study is getting national recognition in a publication from T4 America, but in a large part, it's being acknowledged because Denver Regional Council of Governments created a funding source that allowed us to study this and to engage the community to the level that we were at with the station area study. We worked with 16 neighborhoods in that process. So with that long introduction, I'd like to introduce to you Doug Rex.
Wow, I'm done. That was great. No, Doug Rex, Executive Director of DRCOG. First of all, thank you, Stuart, very much for the opportunity and invitation to be here today. We are truly honored to be associated with Transportation Solutions and the other TMAs, the other 6 TMAs or TMOs throughout this region. I won't say they're underappreciated. The work you guys do in the area of working with employers throughout this region is incredible. I didn't have a full grasp of what exactly they did when I first came on at DRCOG, but it's truly incredible, and I think they do great work with leadership with like Stuart. Stuart, I'll tell you, he's not afraid to pick up the phone and tell us the way it is. And no, we appreciate that blunt honesty sometimes, and he's great. So you guys should be happy to have Stuart at the helm. Who here is familiar with DRCOG? Yeah. I knew you're good people. So, well, first of all, it's by far the best acronym in the business, DRCOG. You know, we got some, Pauletta, Southern California, SCAG. Seriously? Houston Galveston Council of Governments, HGAC. Right? So we got a cool name. So if nothing else, we got a cool name. So, but it's not without its problems too. In DRCOG, we house the Area Agency on Aging within our agency, and so we get calls all the time, right? So our switchboard answered, DRCOG, I would like to make an appointment. Who would you like to make an appointment with? The doctor. I get that all the time. One more. The last place I did was I was at ACOG, is the Council of Governments in Oklahoma City. We shared that acronym, unfortunately, with the American College of Obstetricians and Gynecologists. So those telephone conversations were interesting to say the least. No, but no, I appreciate there's a lot of people that know who DRCOG is. But you know what? I play a lot of golf. And when I play with, I cringe when I play with someone new, right? Because it's, because I know the inevitable questions come. So what do you do for a living? And trying to explain what DRCOG is between the 8th tee box and the 8th green, it ain't easy, right? Because it's not government, we're kind of quasi-governmental, we're not private sector, we're a voluntary association of local governments. But the true genius of what DRCOG is, it is the only time that 59 elected officials have the opportunity to get together and discuss anything. Right? It's an arena for that collaboration. And this dude right here, he served on our board for years, and and it's not all wine and cheese, right? I mean, there's.
I've got the scars to prove it.
Exactly. And so they're not afraid to get down and get after it, right? Which is cool. And we're looked amongst the Council of Governments throughout the country as one of those places in which it really works. So we actually meet twice a month. We have a work session the first Wednesday of the month, and our regular board meeting on the third Wednesday of the month. So there's an opportunity twice a month for those guys to get together. So we really, one of the areas, well, there's 3 main areas that we concentrate in. There's senior services, Area Agency on Aging I mentioned. Transportation and mobility is probably the largest area we work in, and growth and development, of course, which is obviously related. All 3 of those are very much related. So I'll probably just leave it there for now. I'm sure we'll get into some details about the challenges we have upcoming.
Thanks, Doug. Our next expert has really been a breath of fresh air here at TU. Chad and I and others worked on this transportation master plan for the campus. It was a great, great plan, but we kind of wondered whether or not it was just going to end up on the shelf. Well, shortly after being done, James arrived, and I'll tell you, the attitude that he's had, he's looked at these ideas and these innovations, and he's like, let's do it. Come on, let's go. And I really appreciate that. So with that, I'll introduce James Rosner.
Well, thank you, Stuart. Was introduced previously, and one thing I did want to mention just introduction-wise is that really a lot of the effort that's going on started with the transformation that happened with our new chancellor. Chancellor Rebecca Chop arrived and went through and established the strategic plan for the University of Denver, and it's called Impact 2025. And if you have a chance to look at it, it's pretty amazing, and I really made sure that I looked into it and referenced it before coming. And there's transformation directives that are in Impact 2025, and it covers a broad range of what does DU want to be across the academic community, across the endowment, the research areas, and there's one area, there's 4 transformation directives, and one of which really struck a chord with the direction and the pathway that we have, which is Transformation Directive 4 is called 1DU. And for those used to being at DU for a while, they understand that DU is very stovepiped and very siloed, and very school by school organized to be able to stand alone and work on their own. And 1DU is really looking at breaking down barriers and having everyone understand that we're one university. And of course, the goal for DU is to be a great private university dedicated to the public good. So DU really exemplifies that, and there's, I know, it's kind of like, I call it a 7-layer bean dip almost, you know, and this is kind of like the first layer is the beans, right? And the next layer are these strategic initiatives of, and of course I didn't turn off my phone, so I'm gonna, pardon me for the interruption. The strategic initiatives, one of which is really geared towards sustainability. It's reducing our carbon footprint. It's driving us towards strategic transportation and sustainable transportation. And the other part of the strategic initiative in that 1DU is also implementing best practices and being very innovative. So coming into DU, those were somewhat of the marching orders that I had after learning and reading the strategic plan. So how do we implement some of those things? Luckily, a lot of work had been done with the Transportation Master Plan, with a land use plan that had been taken. So a lot of studies and a lot of thought to then prepare us for what we're working on right now is a framework plan or a campus master plan that's really taking into account all these studies and trying to set a vision for DU for the next 25 or 30 years. And part of that is instead of DU being so inwardly focused and just, if you look at our greens and, you know, even where the front doors to our buildings are, they're really set, you know, focused inward. How do we integrate outward and have these connections with the neighborhoods, both on the built environment, but also transportation? How do people get around? So a lot of work that we're doing, of course, with the station area plan, with our campus master plan and our traffic studies was taking that transportation master plan, which had a lot of recommendations, and using this to filter it to prioritize to say, where are we going to action and what are we going to start doing as part of this? So it's really exciting that a lot of study and thought has been done prior to this, and we're currently in a lot of initiatives to start actioning the recommendations from these plans. So it's a very serendipitous time right now with a lot of efforts aligning at one time. And also with being part of 1DU, we're really trying to reach out with Eugene and with Cindy Patton and with other folks in the city to understand how we networked together, because we're kind of like this lump of a lot of folks that come and go at one point in time. And how do we connect with the city so that if we're looking at a bike pathway or campus shuttle or others, how do we interface well so that we can connect to where people want to go other than just the university? So that's a really exciting opportunity right now, and there's a lot to discuss with what's happening with the campus. So I'm very excited to be here.
Great. Well, thanks for all the introductions. We have a great panel. The fun part is if you can ask provocative questions that get attention, feel free to ask what you'd like. I'm going to ask my friend and colleague, Pete Van Heuven, who's with Bike Colorado, to ask our first question. Then after that, anybody who's interested, come to the microphone.
Sure, good morning. Thanks, Stuart. I'm Pete Van Heuven with Bicycle Colorado, and I'd like to talk to the doctor. Good morning, Doug.
You're the real doctor. No, you're the doctor.
My question really is, I think, thinking from a regional perspective, could you highlight for us what you think the can't-miss opportunities are going to be with respect to mobility in the next 2 years? So sort of, you know, what are those things that we absolutely have to get rolling on to get more people walking, biking, using transit? And because I'm a bike advocate, I'm obviously interested in what you might highlight in the world of bikes, and maybe beyond Douglas, which I think is an obvious arena that we're going to be looking at in the next 2 years. Thanks.
No, that's a fabulous question, and you're right, Douglas, I mean, bike share, anybody who knows me knows I'm a bike share addict. I mean, I was saying when we came up here on stage, when I got off at Lincoln Station, last week or whatever it was, look, I see this row, 25, 30 yellow, these beautiful bicycles. I'm like, where the heck did these come from? And then I researched the hell out of them and figured out what they were. And it's just tremendous, right? And I think, as Chris even mentioned, I mean, First Final Mile is something we do have to get a handle on, right? Because it's all about, if we're trying to increase transit ridership specifically, it has to be convenient, right? And you have to know we're building this beautiful infrastructure, rail infrastructure out there. And if you can't get from that station to your final destination, well, you know what? I'm not interested in riding it. And I know several of you have heard me say this before, but my community is, I live down south, so I get on at Lincoln Station, I get off at 10th and Osage, jump on B-Cycle from there, and ride the rest of the way in. I mean, that works for me, right? And it's about routine. And we're not turning around a speedboat here with regards to additives. This is the QE2 we're turning around, so it's going to take some time. But over the next 2 years, it's very interesting, right? I deal in this planning world that 20 years is it seems it's kind of short term, which is ridiculous to say. But I do think that there's a change, right? Simply because I think there's a recognition by all of us that we're in an unprecedented period of growth, right, within this region. We're expecting 1.1, 1.2 million people to relocate here between now and the year 2040. I mean, that's just stupid growth. I mean, you think it's hard to wrap your head around it, right? I use Buffalo as an example all the time. I'll use Oklahoma City. It's basically everyone in Oklahoma City closes their doors, closes shops, and moves here in the next 20 years. I mean, think about it. How do you provide the mobility necessary to accommodate that growth? Well, it's obviously not going to be associated with roadway capacity projects. There is a place for that, obviously, right? I mean, there's hotspots throughout this region which we're going to have to fix. But in order for us to be who we say we want to be when we grow up, we're going to have to diversify our transportation portfolio, and that's simple fact, and everybody recognizes that. And now it's just a matter of changing attitudes to get there. And it's through venues such as this one that will really help in moving that needle.
Sounds good. Next question from anyone? Councilmember Black.
Hi, thank you. I have a question about money, because that's what we need, and yay, Los Angeles, California. 71% is a landslide, and we have statewide, regionally, and locally talked about a lot of different ways to fund transportation and mobility. And a good idea failed at the state legislature last year to put something on the ballot, although I don't know if it was the perfect thing, but our state legislature couldn't even agree to put it on the ballot. So do you all think the answer is a statewide fund, or a regional fund, or a city fund, following up on our millennial who left? But because I do think there are a lot of leaders who do want to do this, but what do you think the best solution is? Is it regional, like LA County, but we would just do it for either Dr. Cog or RTD, or is it the statewide model?
Looks like Chris is going to answer this question.
I think Chris is going to fail to answer that question. That's a great question, and I think our transportation environment right now is not only complicated, but becoming more complicated. It's kind of like those of you who don't know me, I tend to speak in metaphors. The entertainment. There used to be 4 channels, and everyone watched the same news. So you had very few channels to choose from. Everyone had the same entertainment. Everyone had the same sort of frame of reference. Everyone was watching the same shows. Now we have 150 channels plus YouTube channels and other things I don't even know about. Is Instagram a channel? I don't know, but it's all these different ways that people communicate, and it kind of atomizes, separates us, puts us in different boxes and pointing in different directions. And so with transportation, as transportation becomes more and more diversified, I think it becomes a challenge to reach that sort of collective goal. Like, we're all in this together, we're all pointed in the same direction, we all want the same thing when you have this incredible diversity of transportation options. So you have to have the bike people really care about the transit people, and you have to have the transit people also willing to pony up for some roadway improvements, and you have to have the roadway people who will never take transit also care about the on-demand shuttle that does first last mile, and that's, I think there's no way we can really move forward unless we get to the spot that we got in 2004 and Los Angeles just got in, where you're really investing a huge amount of public money for a long period of time in a whole set of solutions, but that the challenge is getting everybody to feel like they're all in the boat together to invest in that, and everybody's going to be better off. That's a big challenge. In the DRCOG process, we tend to sort of do it a little piecemeal. There's I scratch your back, you scratch mine, we'll fund this, we'll fund that. And DRCOG does an amazing job of actually articulating a trajectory for transportation funding, but it is nonetheless, there's a lot of, baubles that are hung off that Christmas tree and a little bit of present for everybody, so it's hard. And I think this is a challenge for all of us, is reinforcing that there's a whole diversity of options, a whole diversity of ways of getting around, but it's all part of the system and we're all in it together and we need to invest together. So that wasn't an answer, that was me scratching my head.
Well, let me just try to answer that real quick in regards to, well, first of all, I'm glad we're talking about revenue, right? I mean, 3 years ago, we weren't even having a conversation because, the polling didn't show it to be, ranked high enough on the list. We weren't passing a certain threshold. So that's fantastic because, we haven't, our major source of revenue for transportation is fuel tax. And as you all know, it hasn't been increased for over 25 years. I mean, I'd like to see anybody try to, to basically, run their household now based on what they were making 25 years ago. I mean, costs have increased exponentially. And as a result, I mean, we are what we are right now, right? We're just being reactive to our needs, and it's a bad place to be. With regards to your question, what's the proper way, is it a statewide initiative, regional initiative, what have you? We believe that this, we have a statewide transportation problem. There's no doubt about it, and we're committed to working with the coalition right now in the latest ballot initiative to try to get something done at the statewide level. So, with that said, I don't think the region is going to wait, right? So if this is not successful in the fall, then I think we're going to have to reevaluate where we are. But I do believe that this, if we are not successful, which I hope we are, because it's truly a need, that the region will then begin to look at, what options we have.
Great, Sylvia.
Hey, this message is for Chandra. I know Douglas Bike Share is fairly new and you haven't been around very long, but do you have any data on who are your users? Are they people who are new to biking? And then what is the biggest impact that you think Douglas Bike Share will have on the transportation landscape of cities?
Yeah, so we're very new to the US. We launched our first city, Seattle, in August, but we've been around as a company since 2014. So we do have a lot of learnings from other parts of the world. And the really cool thing that we've seen from Douglas is that every city and every market is different. So you can't really say, in Denver specifically, these are the most trips we're gonna see, or the different kinds of people that we're going to see using the service. So I think most of you know that we're operating right now in Aurora, and 20% of our trips in Aurora are happening during the lunch hour, which is one of the highest in the country, and that's very specific to Aurora. So probably people who are taking RTD in and they don't want to be trapped and confined for lunch, right? So it's really cool to have those learnings, and they vary city by city. The great thing about OFO is we're very data driven, and our users tell us how they're using it every time they unlock a bike and then lock it at the end of the trip. So we can see where they're picking up, we can see where they're dropping off, we can see those travel patterns, we can see where peak demand areas are and times of the day. So I think it's incumbent on us as a private company to aggregate that information and share it with cities so they understand where are the travel patterns, maybe where are your log jams, where is there additional demand for alternative transportation, to be able to share those routes to make cities better places to live. And I think that in the short term, that's the greatest benefit that we can provide to cities where we operate.
Great, thanks. Eugene.
All right, so I've heard the word diversity and thinking about the variety of mobility options. I'm also kind of curious about whether it's around TOD or around the region, how do we have a conversation around racial and ethnic diversity and getting them to care about transit, transportation, and different options and different places to live? Is there I hate to kind of put you on the spot, Rex, but is there a strategy at work? Or is DRCOG really trying to understand not just population in general terms, but very specific populations and what those needs are? And if so, how does that fit into the conversation? Because we've got so many people moving here from all over the place that bring with them what they believe and their expectations. So how do we create our own new Denver metro melting pot?
Yeah, that's a tremendous question. I guess the answer is not, we don't do it enough, right? You know, I think we learn an awful lot through Sustainable Communities Initiative, you know, that geez, long, 6, 7, 8 years ago now, I guess. So we learned a lot through that process and, you know, the mechanisms and the better way to do it. I think the most important thing for us to remember, and this could be a message to everybody, is that, you know, I think we have a tendency to speak around people as opposed to them, and to really, and not only speak, but to listen, right, to exactly what they're saying. And, you know, we fully acknowledge that we need to do a better job of that. Actually, we're in the process of redeveloping our public involvement strategy right now. And so it's a significant issue. And I think, you know, more than anything, it's like, I think there's a necessity that various groups understand and they get buy-in that we're building this infrastructure for them to use as well, right? As opposed to just other groups. You know what I mean? I think we struggle with that sometimes, and you know, it's in our messaging. We don't do the best job of that, and hopefully that's an area we will improve on in the future.
Great, thank you. Go ahead.
Actually, I wanted to can we go this way as well as this way?
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to ask James, so the DU is in some ways a incredibly diverse community in microcosm, and I'm kind of curious to have you answer that question with respect to DU. So you have, you know, vast variation in socioeconomic level from, you know, the workforce that works at DU to the faculty and staff to the really rich people who are your students. And then, you know, you've got racial and ethnic diversity. You've got a lot of foreign students, and so, you know, you're struggling with that in microcosm. I'm curious how you manage that.
And I'm glad you brought that up. I was going to talk a little bit about who's our constituent and who's our customer and who needs to get to and from campus in the introduction. So this is very helpful. It's really interesting to see who the constituents are. You know, we have 5,000 undergraduates, and usually our freshman class is about 1,500. the majority of our students are actually graduate students. It's 6,500 graduate students who obviously don't live on. We have a 2-year live-on requirement for freshmen and sophomore. So that's our student population dynamic, and a lot of the graduate students come from all walks of life. Some might have gone straight from undergrad to graduate, some are returning professionals, and so that dynamic is very interesting. Also, our staff. We have, in my department, for example, I have the largest department on campus regarding about 283 staff. A large constituency are my custodial staff that's on campus. We have a union workforce that is my custodians, grounds, and our skilled trades. And so that's a certain workforce that's different than tenured professor, academic professors, and the faculty side. And I think combined, I'm looking for some help on numbers. It's about 3,800 combined faculty and staff-ish, somewhere around there. So about 5,000 undergrad, 6,500 graduate, 3,800 faculty and staff from the chancellor to our groundskeepers and custodians. Then you look at the activity across campus. We host three school districts, high school graduations for about 2 weeks on campus here in May. It is a very exciting time. I'm trying to remember the actual number of high schools. It's about 20-ish high school graduations that we are doing during the school day while all of our faculty, staff, and students are here at the exact same time. As well as when you're looking at our national championship hockey team. Yes, I have to put that plug out. You know, we have Division I athletics that are here at the same time as youth hockey. High school swim meets are happening. Music lessons and performing arts at the Newman Center. And so it's a very dynamic ebb and flow of campus of various constituencies. So one solution that might work for, or looking at a solution that works for undergraduate in-resident students, might not work for those folks that are coming from their home for whether it's a series of classes or it's just a one-time event. They're going to come to a performance. So that's somewhat of the lens working with Transportation Solutions and others to see how do we implement solutions that can meet all those constituents throughout the year. So let's see. So with that background, there is, as part of the Transportation Master Plan and our Campus Master Plan, we're also looking to the future of how all those constituents get to and from campus. We were asked about autonomous vehicles, is very interesting. When we're looking at knocking down parking garages, and my parking and mobility services director isn't here right now, but everyone jokes that a parking lot is just a future building site, right? And through our Campus Master Plan, a good example is, I'm glad we're in this room for this meeting because we're going to actually knock this building down in November and build a new student union. We're building a new 500-room residence hall right next to this, and this building's actually going to have central dining for campus. And so with those two projects, we're actually building on top of parking lots that we're not replacing. And I get the joy of communicating that to faculty and staff that have parked in their spot for 20 years, and now where do I park now? Well, let's look at solutions. I think we're eliminating, I'm trying to remember off the top of my head, about 180-ish spots in 4 lots that we're not replacing. To use existing inventory, and then to help with whether it's dockless bike share, campus shuttle, to get them around campus in different means and modes, so that we're providing those alternatives to then what happens to me individually for what I do, including the folks that are just coming for those one-time visitors. How can we communicate and market for those high school graduations? Please don't drive. Please use the light rail station. come to campus. We have a campus shuttle and bikes for you to come here, and you can go, and you don't have to fight through has anybody been here during the graduation time by chance? It is, and during the switch out from one high school to the next, how much more convenient is it to just go up to the light rail, get on, worry-free, and go on your way? So we're really working hard right now with the different constituents, communicate how can you get to campus in different ways. The other part, in terms of speaking with Eugene's question in equity, it's interesting because with removing of parking, there's still costs, and we have to have yearly permits, and the affordability of permits affects staff in different ways. So if we charge for parking permits that it's so painful to park on campus, we are looking at Paul Cashman, do we drive folks into the neighborhoods to park? And that's not being a good neighbor, right? So we're balancing that. But then also making it affordable for that staff to access these places to get to campus, because a lot of our custodians and grounds staff or lower income staff members can't afford to live close to campus. So they're the ones that are driving, trying to get to campus. So how can we educate and incentivize, whether through EcoPass and using the transit, to get here closer and get to their place of work faster? So it's a very dynamic question, and we're really trying to come up with these solutions that affect all the constituents on campus and not just one group. I hope that helps.
Yeah, it's great.
Okay, that is a great segue for me for the question that I actually wanted to speak to Dr. Levine, different doctor, that doctor. One of the things that Pauletta talked about in her presentation was educating the next generation. So I know we have work programs and we have a variety of things going on here on the college level. But I'm wondering if anybody is looking at taking maybe a traveling road show on TOD to middle schools and high schools, where we would be educating the next generation of people who we are telling, don't buy cars, please ride RTD loves you, take your bike, and how are we moving as a group, I think I'm addressing this to the room, to make that dynamic real instead of just talk. Thank you.
Are you sure you want me to answer? No, I'm happy to try. And that's a good question, seriously, to educate everyone, obviously on young people, middle, and people like me, older. We have a conference coming up here on campus on driverless vehicles and the impact, and that impact can also be the advantages that one can have by taking driverless vehicles, among other means and modes of transportation. And that's on May 7th, so it's not that far away. And it's on campus. DU is sponsoring it. We're also working with some other universities and people on the same idea, because I think the question's a good question. And it's part of what has already Doug, Chris have said, and so on. It's part of the idea, the mindset to get people educated, to get them thinking about it. Now, millennials, we say, have less issue with that because they're used to calling Uber and Lyft and taking rapid transit, doing lots of things. Not everyone, but a number of them are. But if we were to ask, and I smile a little when I hear, we can take the rapid transit to events that are happening here on campus, and I can just see, no offense to anyone, I'm older than most, that are 60 or 65 or whatever, and saying, yeah, I'm going to take that and I'll grab a bike. And I'll jump on it and I'll come out to the hockey game or whatever it happens to be. I doubt it. They may take the rapid transit. Now, if we had some driverless vehicle issues and means to do it, doesn't have to be just a bicycle, it doesn't have to be just walking. it might, as it was already said, that Doug's saying, you know, get them all working together and complement everything. That would be wonderful. So I completely agree with the question in the sense of the implicit position of how do we get people working together and how do we get them informed and how do we get the mindset changed. I think universities for younger people are seeing that more. Now there's some practical points too, in which we're doing it indirectly, like the conference I mentioned. We're showing people, and some of you have read Bridges' book and others, about how much is saved by not owning your own vehicle. So people start focusing on it. There's convenience, there's the ease, I don't have to worry about parking, which we all know is a big issue, and you just heard James say some things about parking issues. But the idea of saving money strikes a chord too with a lot of people. And so we stress at these conferences and so on, here's how much you can save, and wouldn't it be nice not to have to worry about negotiating for a car, negotiating for insurance, it's much safer. So when we show all these attributes, I think we can change the mindset, or at least let people appreciate the opportunities. It won't change all at once, as has already been said, and that's okay. And maybe it's you have 2 or 3 cars, and we talk about it with others attending the conferences or students or whatever, that the family might have 2 or 3 cars, and maybe they go down to 2 cars, and maybe down 1 car. So it happens, and they start taking alternative modes of transportation. So we're working at it, educating. But I completely agree it's a mindset issue, and we're working at it. We're going to continue with conferences, continue in other means to try to get this message across.
Gene?
I understand the long-term planning aspects, but I also look at things in short-term, simple solutions. And my point is, for example, in Breckenridge, when we would go skiing, and I could go when I wanted, my kids could go when I wanted, we knew that bus would be at that stop every 16 minutes. And sometimes it was late, whatever. But you could use it easily. And it's such a simple, concrete solution to say, let's put in a circulator that people at the university will know every 15 minutes, every 20 minutes, bang, it's going to stop at this street, this street, and this street, and go to the train station, or go to Cherry Creek, or something like that. It's just so simple and concrete, and when I lived in the Cherry Creek School District, parents are driving their kids to school at all different times, and why was there this huge church parking lot that you're passing, and you're in traffic, and I was thinking, put in a circulator bus there. It goes every class hour, back and forth, beginning of the day, end of the day, and then people stay on the car and you all pick up this huge parking lot, which was a very central area, at least a certain number of people would reduce that amount of traffic. So what are the impediments of putting in a simple concrete solution like that? Money is one, right? But I mean, we talk about a lot of things, but I would think in the last year we could have found a circulator in this area with DU and University Park and all the apartments going up. And I hear Cherry might be coming, and so my question is, what can we do with concrete actions in the short term to do exactly what you're saying, connecting stations with the communities?
I think that's a James question.
Thank you. And that's what is so exciting about the change in technology. So in the past, when DU had and operated and owned a shuttle, it meant that DU had to buy 1 or 2 shuttles at, making it up, $250,000 a piece or so. And then we needed to have staff and hire staff that would allow for a predictable driver to be there during whether they took vacation or sick or anything else. And the campus shuttle itself, the campus circulator, died on the line due to unpredictability or lack of ridership or others. And that was a while back. You know, this is what I've heard on why we didn't have one. So when we're trying to look at starting one, again, we're looking at resource limitations, as everyone is. And it was hard for us to sell to leadership, let's invest in the vehicles or the riders. And this pilot that we're trying, and just talking with Paul about it a little bit, is really an exciting opportunity for scalability that we wouldn't have before. Or who could be that constituent to use that shuttle? If DU bought and owned and operated it, how would we then make that available for the neighborhoods to use as well? It gets a little sticky with, you know, everyone with alligator arms, you know, saying this is, I don't want to either put the bill or, hey, we fronted the bill, so this is only for this use and we're not going to open it up to others. Some of those barriers are gone with this new pilot. So we're able to work with Chariot on a circulator that is a fixed route around campus that DU is putting in, we're putting in our money in the pot to have that consistent known route. And with technology, it's almost like the Uber of shuttles. So folks will be able to see when where the shuttle is in the route, and we're looking at it on 15-minute increments. This is where I think Transportation Solutions, working with Dr. Cog Grant, to help us on a, we haven't got there yet, right? So,
be careful.
To help us market, and so it's how do we get the word out? You know, we're really trying to launch the dockless bike share for the spring quarter, so the students are here for a whole quarter and know that when I come back next year, I don't need to buy my bike, abandon it in the bike rack, and now we have to cut them off and store them and then dispose of. How many bikes did we have last year? 120 bikes were abandoned last year on campus. And so same thing as trying to launch the shuttle to try to get a good marketing campaign, because we just have that fixed route, but we want to expand it because the students even aren't going to use it. If they're in the middle of campus to just go north, they'll probably walk. But that student that's in the residence hall wants to go to Cherry Creek, wants to go to Wash Park, wants to go to Safeway, wants to get somewhere else. And this has that scalability where it's not just DU shuttle. We're going to work on these different routes to encourage ridership, connect to Cherry Creek, and maybe you can talk about how the struggles there to partner with the employees getting to Cherry Creek and other things as well, to let us have a very predictable fixed route that we'll have for a year, and then it grows and expands as all the constituents are starting to increase the demand for it. So we're excited. That's the concept. We're working through many, many details. We're looking to have it start July 1st is our goal. And then see how it itself takes on a life of its own. That's the fun part about a pilot is we have an intent and we don't know the benefit that we don't know yet. And it might grow for use that we don't anticipate that might benefit our lower income staff that need a good way to come into campus. And that's one of our options is a commuter or a circulator that can actually go out in the neighborhood and have a fixed route for staff that are trying to come in on campus as well. So it's a very different paradigm and it's very mushy. And so even with leadership asking, how does this work? It's tough to try to explain all the different variations because technology changes. You know, who would have thought that Uber and Lyft would have made such a marked difference in travel, just like this might. And I look to my RTD partners as well to say, you know, this is our way to connect folks to RTD, not try to take away from RTD, but how can I bring folks to already established stations to connect to an already existing network that's difficult to get to now, especially in the snow and in the cold. So we're really excited about it, and I really like the question. Maybe you can talk. We're really needing to work on the marketing to get the word out on how it's used, and then maybe you can touch a bit on how maybe this seed might spread and benefit others.
Just to make a connection here, good. Chariot is microtransit. So when you saw Pauletta's presentation, it's really the same thing. It's a demand responsive type of shuttle where it's not going to stop if no one's there. And that's what the campus is exploring now, where they can connect demand, you know, with the use of the vehicle. And so I think it's very exciting. This does provide a great opportunity for us and for the city. And Cindy Patton, just raise your hand. Cindy has been very helpful in working with us to look at, you know, can we use microtransit beyond just the campus? And how can it be applied in Denver? And, you know, we don't really know the answers yet, but it's something that's certainly being studied. And having a partner like the University of Denver, you know, take this big step forward is so critical to us moving forward. We're moving into an era of public and private with mobility. We're going to see more partners like Chariot, a private company, operating within the transit realm. We haven't figured it all out, but we're working on it, so that's good. I want to throw this to another question to Dr. Levine down here.
Before you do that, may I make one comment? The idea of having Chariot, the idea of having this circular kind of thing, both manned and, if you will, driverless, is a big thing, and that's already operating, as some of you know, in the world. Singapore has it, other universities have it already. So the idea is there, and it'll just grow.
I was just going to ask, one of the things we had in our station area study was to look at using driverless shuttles for a fixed route. And in this particular context, this is just hypothetical. High Street over here where all the residents are located, if we just had a driverless shuttle that went up and down High Street, you know, that could be a helpful option. And microtransit kind of spiking out to various different areas around. But I think there's two elements. One is the education of the public about the driverless vehicles, but there's also the availability. And I think right now we're obsessing with a lot of the stories where driverless doesn't work. But the reality is it is working, and it's going to change everything that we do. So a big question to you.
Well, I think that's constant with what was discussed over all these things developing. And clearly, the driverless shuttles already are operational. Many of you know that. In other places in the world, we're not alone. That's one reason why we did the conference in Israel, to bring people in from other places in the world to see what's happening and see where the development is coming from the Mobileye's and the Nexars and the Intels and all those that are developing this artificial intelligence, robotic stuff, and the driverless, and it's there. So I think on campuses, it's just perfect. First of all, we know, in general, some of the populace that's on campus, James, as you were mentioning. Secondly, we know, if we talk just students, and we shouldn't, because we have neighboring areas, and I agree, Stuart, with that, but we know the big influx in times when classes move out and in, and the 10 minutes in between classes, and all the rest. So for many reasons, it's already working. This is not something, well, let's try it and see. We are trying it, but I'm telling you, it exists already, and our research and our papers are showing that, and it's been very successful. A lot of them just also, when you say we don't stop, some of them go very slowly, 5, 10, 15 miles an hour, and a circuit around, and others with more speed, but it's working. The word will travel fast with our students and staff, faculty, and so on. So I think it's already there. It's just a question of getting them out, James, to get those things done.
And the great part in Drive with DU in particular is with our study abroad program,
yes,
almost all our juniors actually leave campus for a whole quarter, and they're going to those countries where it's operational. They're seeing it in action, and they're coming back as a constituent saying, wow, I just studied abroad, I didn't own anything, and I got around just fine. And so that's really interesting as well.
Yeah, and let me just add that ties into the questions that were raised and a lot of other things in James' comments and others on parking on whether campuses or other places, the cost, the need for it. They suddenly realize, and we asked the question about getting the word out, they don't need some of this. There's savings, and you might say, well, they're rich kids. They're not all rich kids. But the point is, we all like to save money, but more importantly, I think in many instances, if we don't have to hunt for parking, if we don't have to worry about fighting for those lots in the lottery to see who gets a parking permit, if we don't have to worry about those issues, all of this comes together to make it attractive, and I think we'll see it mushrooming. And you're talking about a conference like this 2 years from now, 3 years from now, and so on. It'll be a given.
Mm-hmm. We have time for 2 more questions. I see Bill Elfenbein.
It's very, very exciting to hear what DU has done or is trying to do, and they're to be congratulated because there are so many things that are happening here on campus that do flow out to the neighborhoods and the city that they're in. And I really congratulate them for taking the bull by the horns in doing this. Unfortunately, there's a political part of this for the rest of us, for the rest of the city and for the state, and really the country. Politically, we are still in the 19th century as far as funding what needs to be done. And money comes down to all this. We're fortunate DU is putting out the dollars to look at what needs to be done and committing to do some of these things. But the big question is, what do we do? How do we politically get our leaders locally and statewide and federal to understand what needs to be done? Because many things that we've talked about are realistic, they can be done technically, but we haven't put the resources in. So I'd love to hear some answers on how we can push our local leadership.
It's a great question. Who wants to take it?
Chris.
Oh, Chris looks enthused.
You're perfect, Chris. Actually, I want to answer this in a sort of oblique way. So, you know, there's the expectation that government, that public agencies are responsible for large-scale, system-wide trunk infrastructure, mass transit, and that's right, just and good. And I think your anxiety that we have not figured out how to invest sufficiently in that large-scale, system-wide trunk infrastructure, that's a great point. But the opportunities that are emerging from all these other technologies, the micro transit, all these other technologies are creating opportunities to do things at a much smaller scale, and at a scale that actually gives great bang for the buck. You know, solving the first mile, last mile problem to the, okay, it's insufficient and underfunded, the trunk infrastructure, but we can start to solve that problem by having the first mile, last mile problem solved. But there's another challenge here in that we're getting that micros, that smaller scale solved when we have big institutional players who are willing to make the early investment to make it happen. So, you know, you referred to Breckenridge and the mountain communities. You know, they've had reliable free transit. Why? Not because they're like groovy and progressive, but because Vail Resorts knows that tons of congestion is against their interests, and that they invest in the free transit. People will take that, and people will be happy and be able to get to the ski resorts and, you know, spend $25 on a hamburger. So you have a big institutional player solving the problem there. Here around DU has a big interest in solving the problem around DU, and we can partner with DU to make that happen. But what about South Federal? Where's the big institutional player on South Federal? There isn't one. And so I agree with you, Bill. At the large scale, we have to solve the funding problem. But if these small scale technology solutions are going to be part of our solution, how do we get that done in places like South Federal, South Broadway? Where is the big institutional player? And I think we're going to have to develop, and we're starting to do that at the city, develop a pattern book or a framework or some tools to actually bind together the smaller players in a community to contribute to doing the micro transit, to doing the investing in OFO. And we don't have that problem solved yet, but I think at the municipal level, that's something that we can do, figure out how to bind together the community of South Federal or South Broadway to begin solving these microtransit problems while we together address the larger political question of how do we get us as a whole entire community, as a country, investing in the big mass transit trunk infrastructure, system-wide tools that we need.
Well, very good. It looks like we are just about out of time. Please join me in thanking our panelists.